Crossing the Line, the Passport Reimagined is an exhibition Cynthia Sears and I started working on well over a year ago, when we invited 15 artists to make an artist book inspired by passports and other travel documents. Only 12 artists were able to make it to the final deadline. 3 of them are here. In addition to these 12 commissioned works, we gathered 18 more titles from the collection on these themes to fill out the show. I hope you find the exhibit inspiring. I hope for everyone there is a work that connects you to your personal story on any of the themes of belonging, identity, travel, immigration, and/or the journeys of your ancestors.
As I continue to learn more and more about our interactions with the non-human world, I started to revamp my garden to make it a better habitat. So I started to pull up, and one of the many projects that I'm doing in the garden is to pull up the landscape fabric weed barrier in the garden, and I decided to use that material for the book. And especially after I pulled them up and I discovered that a lot of roots had actually penetrated the barrier. So the fabric really doesn't do anything. The roots will go through. So I used the fabric and also some parts. So on the cover there, you can see there's the patch in the middle has the roots that went through the fabric. And I also wanted to use the needle and thread to mimic the action of the roots passing through the barrier. So that's why I decided to use embroidery, even though I am not at all an expert embroiderer. I am a seamstress. I decided it was an opportunity to learn how to embroider. As I researched the idea of the passport, I discovered that in the West, the freedom to travel has really shifted back and forth. And the passport is really less about the freedom to travel than about the restriction of travel. The current passport requirement in the US is actually based on the power of a national emergency that was declared during World War II, and that just has never been lifted. Prior to that, a passport was not needed for travel except for during World War I. So this is a fairly new, in the history of people, a fairly new requirement. So the book gives you a little bit of the background about the proclamation of the emergency, and then I talk about the roots crossing the barrier without a valid passport. Then there's a story of a Guatemalan father and his 7-year-old child who made the trek into the US without a passport. My story, 2 of my stories of going to Great Britain without a valid passport. Well, I had a passport, but they did not recognize it as valid. Then there's the story of the threads crossing and our efforts to move coastal redwoods north from their current California homeland in a climate-changed world. So these are stories about border crossings without valid passports.
A column shifts, distraction of addition and or subtraction, weigh against a mean proportion of gift, barter, tribute, capture. What did they bid at the bite of Bonnie, lying at the foot of that ocean? As I said, I spent a lot of time floundering, trying to figure out how I might fit a history of unwilling travelers into the size, shape, and materiality that one can hold and bend in a hand, studying its arrivals and departures. Endless ends, puddle, spill, topple over, slide down a bank, bodies of water cup and sup of eye, holding a future promise. At dawn's daunting hill, low valley, gorge, an island's impossible reach, across what land of caravan, Into which country of cowries? You're the kind they go at a gal to get. Nothing was stamped except the vivid memory of their capture. The darkness of their skin ushered them into those ships, but not before searing hot metal burned into each body some cryptic code. The scars would heal into raised marks, unlike their country marks. These marks, delivered by the hands of strangers, filled them with dread. Lagoons, eddies, finfish frog, fishtail flash, or splash. Bones make home out of a river's possession. What would you know of Bordeaux? What they had in common with a world of 17th, 18th, or 19th century travelers were the ships. All manner of ships crossing oceans, lakes, rivers, and seas. At first, I hunted for small wooden models of ships, thinking that I might be able to saw them in half and have the both sides for the covers. Then I looked for wooden frames to create an accordion structure with paper or cloth pages. Then my eyes fell on these 5x5 blocks of wood with the niche carved into the side. I found some hinges at earthwise, then focused on the niche. What could go in there? Cloth. And this decorative gold paper. Of course, they had to be painted. A blue, a very deep blue, and then pale blue, sea and sky. Each pairing became a page. What's the story? Calabar. I could use a text from How Far Calabar. At this point, the work begins to work me. The table is full of beads, small chains, cloth, and cowries to put to test in that niche. I focus my imagination on the idea of bodies in transport. As I went meandering through the gift shop of the Fry Museum, my eyes landed on these wooden hands. There weren't very many. I bought them all. With anxious anticipation, I returned home. Would they fit into that niche? It is a 4-page book, pages numbered by cowries. The currency that bought bodies and or sold bodies. Gold and cloth serve the same purpose. These are the illustrations.
When I first heard about this passport project, I knew that I wanted to do something relating to gender. Before I even started making it, I spent about 6 months reading, listening, learning, and reflecting on the topic. And as my research progressed, I found a new understanding of my own experience of gender. I also found myself just getting more and more pissed off at the absurdity of this construct and the ways that it's impacted so many lives. So I wanted to try to answer that. So the first thing I thought about was how the gender binary acts a lot like geographic borders do. You're either one or the other. You're one of us or one of them. And I started to think about all the ways that we've been conditioned to constantly patrol that border that divides the gender binary. I imagined that there were 2 sides, and each one had a flag planted in it, laying claim to all the expectations and characteristics that seem fundamental to their definitions. There are 2 distinct territories, and there's a boundary that we're constantly reminded not to cross. And I get more pissed off just reading this. It's like, you know? We do this unconsciously too, and it's everywhere. Clothes, hair, locker rooms, dressing rooms, bathrooms. If you choose the correct side, where you're recognizable and expectations are met, there's a place for you. But if neither option fits, or if anyone even suggests that you're doing it wrong, you're going to need to show your passport so you can go about your business and live your life. When I was born and the world declared that I was a girl, I got firmly steered into one direction and away from the other. As a newborn infant, I was assigned a set of rules and expectations that were meant to give me my place in the world. Being born in this body meant that I was supposed to contort myself to be something that I am most certainly not. The passport provides immunity from this list of horribles. And this is only a partial list. Cut the crap. So not as though this is a contest, but as a white, gay, early senior citizen, I actually have it relatively easy. I believe that trans women, and particularly trans women of color, face the steepest hurdles and greatest threats to safety and acceptance. There are feminists from my generation who refuse to acknowledge that trans women are, in fact, women, and that they don't deserve the same considerations and support as cisgendered women. This is a transphobic and bigoted viewpoint, and it drives a wedge between people who are all facing sexism and discrimination and hate. It seems to me that anybody who has to endure the hazards of hateful acts, laws, and perspectives should get flowers and love. I had a transformative experience making this passport, and I was really honored to be invited. And I'm just imagining a world where no one needs to come out of the closet and nobody needs a passport. Thanks.